Okay, the haves and the have-nots. This is referring back to that income gap, or again, a better geographic term is spatial inequality. Okay? All right, as stated before, the motor vehicle, telephone, and television play an important economic role in, in the haves. Okay? In contrast, in less developed countries, these products do not play a central role in daily life. Can you imagine it? No cars, telephones, or televisions, or even just 1/10 of what we have? It's very hard, isn't it? The number of individuals per telephone and motor vehicle exceeds 100 in most LDCs. The number of persons per television set vary widely. The variation reflects the rapid diffusion of television in recent years in LDCs. Most people in LDCs are familiar with these consumer goods even though they cannot afford them. The minority who have these goods in these LDCs include government officials, landowners, and other elites, whereas the majority who are denied access to these goods may provoke political unrest. The income gap, haves and have-nots, spatial inequality. In many LDCs, the haves are concentrated in urban areas and the have-nots live in the countryside. Aren't we glad we learned about urbanization in Chapter 9? That we totally can apply it here in Chapter 10. Okay, social indicators of development. More developed countries use part of their greater wealth to provide schools, hospitals, and welfare services. In turn, this well-educated, healthy, and secure population can be more economically productive, meaning they don't have to worry about surviving. They can focus on living. Okay? They do not get up every day wondering, am I going to make it through the day? Because their government is corrupt, their police force is corrupt, the military is corrupt, the government cannot secure, keep them safe. No one can. They do not get up wondering, oh, I wonder if I'm going to have clean water today. They do not get up wondering, oh, I wonder if I'm going to learn anything today. Okay? It's not about surviving in your have countries, in your MDCs. It's about knowing all those things are going to take place every day. You're going to be fairly safe in your country, at least from usually government persecution and stuff like that. You have access to proper infrastructure, which includes sanitation, transportation, communication, education. You can live instead of just survive, and you can be more productive. Student-teacher ratios. I like this map. Okay. Again, your no data countries. There's always a story behind those. Okay. Now these, your lightly colored countries, where it's above 40-to-1 ratio. Okay. For every 40 students, there is one teacher. Okay. And of course, these are averages. Okay. I know you're sitting in class, and I have more than 15 of you in class. I believe there are more than 15 in all human geography classes in LASD. It's an average. Okay. Ooh, who knows? Okay, per persons per physician. Again, an average, but still quite an indicator. Calories per capita. Okay, I'm going to read that bottom caption. Okay, daily available calories per capita as percent of requirements. In MDCs, the average person consumes 1/3 or more over the required average minimum. Okay, so not only do MDCs um, eat what they're supposed to in average calories per day, they usually eat 1/3 more than they're supposed to per day in their recommended daily caloric intake. Okay? However, LDCs, the average person only gets the minimum requirement or less. Okay? Minimum requirement or less. Okay? Now, demographic indicators of development. Life expectancy. Okay? Oh, this map. I wish I could somehow overlay all these maps to you. I know this is about the third time you've heard me say that, but hopefully you're understanding it. Okay? The UN United Nations HDI utilizes life expectancy as a measure of development. Other demographic characteristics that distinguish more and less developed countries include IMR, infant mortality rate, RNI, rate of natural increase, and CBR, crude birth rates. Again, all acronyms from Chapter 2. Babies born today can expect to live into their early 40s in less developed countries compared to mid-70s in more developed countries. In the United States, the life expectancy for females is 82 and males is 78. And we have already discussed theories and hypotheses as to why that is. The gap in life expectancy is greater for females than for males. With longer life expectancies, MDCs have a higher percentage of elderly people who have retired and received public support. IMR. About 90% of infants survive in less developed countries, whereas in MDCs more than 99% survive. The IMR is greater in LDCs for several reasons: malnutrition, lack of medicine, and or poor medical practices. Look at the map. All right, your rate of natural increase. The natural increase rate averages more than 2% annually in less developed countries and less than 1% in more developed ones. Greater natural increase strains a country's ability to provide services that can make its people healthier and more productive. If you have to spend your money on all your people, you don't have any money to spend it on stuff. Right? And I do believe we covered that concept um, back when we were looking at population and why some populations are staying stagnant and why they are declining, because one of the reasons people want to use their money on stuff instead of families. All right, CBR. Less developed countries have a higher natural increase rate because they have higher crude birth rates. The annual crude birth rate exceeds 40 per 1,000 in many LDCs compared to less than 15 per 1,000 in MDCs. More developed and less developed countries have both annual crude death rates of about 10 per 1,000. Try to picture, what model am I thinking of? Way back from Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 2 has 5 stages, has your curves in it. I'm not even going to tell you. Go back and look in Chapter 2. What was that model? Who made it? It's a square, it's a box, 5 stages. We're in late stage 4, stage 5. Try to remember. Where was I? 2 reasons account for the lack of difference. First, diffusion of medical technology has eliminated or sharply reduced the incidence of several diseases in less developed countries. Second, MDCs have higher percentages of older people. The mortality rate for women in childbirth is significantly higher in LDCs. Okay, those were your demographic indicators. On to issue 2, more and less developed regions. Here's a snapshot. Okay, more developed regions: Anglo-America, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Japan, South Pacific, and your less developed regions: Latin America, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa, East Asia, Middle East, Sub-Saharan. Okay, I think we understand that. Okay. What's that called? Hopefully remembering it was just last chapter, the Brant line. More developed regions. Anglo-America. I am not reading all this stuff on this slide. You do not have to remember or memorize every single word on this slide. You do need to stop here, pause this, and read it. Read it to each other, popcorn reading it if you're with a friend, read it out loud to yourself. Do not sit unless writing everything down absolutely, totally, 100% helps you. But these next slides are just to give you an overall story, a background knowledge, an understanding, which you probably possess some of this already because of the previous 10 chapters we have covered. Remember, we already covered chapter 13, okay? But this is giving you that snapshot. You should have an understanding, okay? So please, pause, read it. Same thing here with Western Europe. Please pause this, read this. Some of this is going to sound familiar, some will not, but I'm not going to sit here and read everything, because even if you are an auditory learner, you can just read it, because I'm not asking you, I will not ask you for specific minutia and facts from here. I'm not taking sentences or sentence stems from here and asking you exact questions. These slides are giving you an overall view, or as I said before, a story of the area. Please pause now. Okay, Western Europe. Continued. Same concept. Pause and read. Pause and read. Eastern Europe. I know, it's a lot. That's why you don't have to write it down. Okay? Just get the story. Get the understanding. Okay? Talks about communism, Cold War, which we just covered. Okay? Pause and read. Pause and read. And of course, if you have any questions, pause, read, write your questions down, email me, or ask me in class. And please be specific. Don't say, what happened on slide 36? I don't know slide 36. I know it now because it's sitting here on my computer, but be specific when you ask your question. Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. See, Hawaii is part of Polynesia. You should know your 3 regions. You don't need to know all these places. Just know Melanesia, Micronesia, Polynesia. Alright, after you have unpaused this from reading it and learning the story, now we move on to your less developed regions, beginning with Latin America. And there's another slide of Latin America, so please pause and read. And China. Now I can say in this second bullet, within a few years, China is projected to exceed the United States as the world's largest economy, although the U.S. economy would be still much larger on a per capita basis. There are many different viewpoints of this. Some people say that China, from this mathematical standpoint, will never pass the United States, or from this mathematical, or for this demographic standpoint, or for this economic standpoint, will not exceed the United States. You can find viewpoints and different wording in or that sound like that second bullet a lot. Just kind of take it and read it to get the story. Okay, thank you. And again, you're going to need to pause. I am not going to sit on each slide long enough for you to read it, because that just makes the file too large. Ooh. Keep reading, just a couple more until we get to key issue 3 and we are done here. You have to have an overall global understanding of these issues. You should probably write down and know what the Alternative Human Index is, the AHDI. And moving on to Africa, so if you need to pause, please do so. Okay, and this will be our last slide in part 3.